I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're exploring the complex journey of grief and healing with Dr. Jim Gordon, author of Grief and Loss, The Start We Call the End, with editing by Betty DeGeneres. This powerful self-help book offers guidance, comforting words, and actionable insights for anyone navigating the challenges of loss, whether it's the death of a loved one or the end of a significant chapter in life. Dr. Gordon's compassionate approach helps readers find strength in their own pain and discover a way forward through the toughest of times. We're delighted to welcome back this very talented author and guest. We'd like to thank the folks at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his powerful book. The links are below this interview. Doctor, great to see you here today on Spotlight. Thanks for joining us once again.
Welcome. We're here. I'm sitting in beautiful downtown West Hollywood right now. My office is in Beverly Hills, but doing most everything from my home studio since I do so much Zoom stuff now. Just changing the view up here so we can see me too. Uh, okay, there we are.
There you
Um,
go. Yeah,
yeah,
Zoom is a new way of life. Soon, nobody will meet each other ever. It'll all be computer mediated during Zoom meetings. But
yeah, I'm finding a lot of depression in people. I mean, I've been Zooming since the 16th of um, March 2020 when we got shut out and I was in Paris heading back. So I had to do my groups from Zoom there, and now we've been officially on Zoom. Yeah, and there's a difference. I've kept my office in Beverly Hills just so that I can go over there once a week to prove I'm still alive and real. Uh, I don't, here is okay, but it's not so great when you just see the cats in the hallway and whatever. It's a little quieter than in the middle of the city.
exactly. Zoom is better, and these computerized meetings and teleconferences are better than not meeting at all, and probably better
Correct.
than a phone call too, because can at least read facial expressions. But nothing beats the human touch. So down the road, for sure, we're going to have to do an in-person interview to show that's true. But today, let's talk a little bit about grief and loss. When you lose something, whether it's someone you love, someone dear to you, or even your career, there's a sense of devastation within the person. Um, what are the first steps to getting better, to recovering? Is it to let yourself go through the gamut of emotions first?
Yeah, my argument in the book is actually Betty DeGeneres is the one that got me motivated about 15 years ago when she lost her older sister. And we were sitting at breakfast, and she said, since she's part of the entertainment industry, or her daughter was particularly, she said, a lot of times people hang out with us because of the connection, not because of us personally. And she used the phrase that I remind myself all the time now is that, um, who will really cry when I die? In
Mm.
other words, are they going to miss me for me? Are they going to miss me for different reasons? And so we have to process all sorts of feelings out. But I also say a long ways into the book that if there's people that are really special to you when they're alive, they're probably still special to you when they're gone. Um, there's a lot of people that we just kind of pass over. My in the book I talk about the it used to be dead men in my Rolodex, but we don't use Rolodexes anymore. So it's now dead people in my phone directory. I was looking through when I fly a lot. I'm going to Europe tomorrow, and I'll look through my phone directory and decide contacts. Okay, who can I move? Who can I not? But as I mentioned in the book, there's people that you look at and you think, I don't want them out of my life. I may get sad for a second when I realize they're gone, but then I also smile when I think of the good times. When there's a name in there that I see and I'm thinking, who the hell was that? Then that one's probably okay to get rid of. Okay. Um, and this is where you have the right to feelings. PTSD hits some of us more.
Mm.
Last time we talked, and I remind you again here in the book that I've dealt with terminal illnesses, majorly working with the AIDS stuff in 1985 to 90, and then stroke unit until 2004. So I've told somewhere around 4,000 people they were, on their way out in terminal. In fact, right now, my brother-in-law is in that spot back east, and I flew back to see him a couple of weeks ago. The other day he called me and he says, "Hey," he said, "they just told me I have 1 to 3 days." Well, now he's made a week and a half. And I said, just keep rolling and just the hell with it and just figure, you're not ready. So damn it, you're not going. And he called last night sounding really perky. And he's not going to make it, but at the same time, he's been dealing with cancer. He's in his 60s. We have to feel the feelings. And a lot of times I deal with, turning a short answer into a long one for you again, Logan, but I deal with the domestic violence stuff all the time, primarily in entertainment industry, high-end people here, what I call the narcissists of narcissists in Beverly Hills. And a lot of them takes a while for them to realize they're human and mortal. You know, my a lot of the guys that come in the group are still, they're actors, musicians, rappers, doctors, lawyers, business people, international business people, and they're like, "But I'm the man. Men are supposed to be respected. Men are not supposed to get busted for domestic violence, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're still mortal. You're still human." What's kind of cool, I had a doctor recently who's a very high-end physician, and he came in and he got choked up for the morning group one day. And he said, he comes from a Middle Eastern country. He said where he was, basically a Mensa type person, top notch, became a doctor, came here, and he said when he got busted for domestic violence, which people don't always realize, domestic violence is not always physical. Okay. It's more, particularly for my end of the people, it's more verbal, financial, emotional when you say things to people. And he said, when I got busted for domestic violence, I felt like a complete failure. And I thought, oh my God, I'm an idiot. And then he said, I'm in here, sitting here in the group and looking at the other people on the screen and that, and realizing we have, attorneys, doctors, musicians, billionaires, people that are really on top of it. And he said, I'm not the only idiot, but he said, I guess it's not because I'm an idiot. It's because of the fact I'm mortal and human. And I said, yeah, in the medical field, you really realize at some point you're mortal. Even, I teach at the Mount St. Mary's University and we have nursing. And the nursing kids are some of the first ones to realize they're human as they sit there and they're being taught how to take care of a patient, but the patient still dies or they can't save them. And they're, wow, I'm human. So, but for a lot of other people, as long as you can show them your Maserati that's parked out front and your, 4 bedroom, 8 bath house, which is classic here in Hollywood and Beverly Hills, you have double the bathrooms for the number of bedrooms because your family's coming and visiting thing. And that tells them they're perfect and they're wonderful. But the truth is, it's really kind of nice when people respect you for you, which goes back to the Betty comment. She said a lot of her older friends started to be more and more friendly, but then wanted to do something with the kid in the industry, entertainment industry. And she realized they weren't there for her.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's important. And I think we all have feelings. And if
Yeah.
you don't have feelings, I also remind the guys in the domestic violence groups and everything else, it takes a lot of strength to be gentle. It takes a lot of guts to be able to say, I made a mistake. And it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of strength for a man to throw the car in park and say, maybe I need to do this differently next time.
Yeah. Advice. Betty DeGeneres, who is your editor, worked with you on the book, read the drafts and so forth, is Ellen DeGeneres' mother for the folks who are viewing at home and want to get cued in on the conversation a little bit.
Sorry. Yes.
Um, but it's an interesting point that you made that, when you're in Hollywood or in any place of prominence, you really don't know who your friends are because people kind of want to latch onto you for a myriad of reasons sometimes, and that can be disheartening, right?
When I travel, I always wear, I've shown you this before, but my Pink Floyd
Right. The dark
hoodie.
side of your mom. I
Yeah.
love it.
And the reason why I do that, and that's Freud's picture on there, not me. Um, but I like to interact, and I
Mm,
wear this a lot. I have a couple of them, black one and two black ones in this one. But people, when I'm on the plane, and I'm flying by myself, it's nice to connect with people. For me, other people
mm,
just want to hide. I like to connect.
yeah.
And as soon as they say, "Oh, what's that?" I said, "Well, I'm an entertainment shrink in the Beverly Hills area, and blah 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 blah." I do it partly to connect and partly to see what their responses are. And some of them immediately are like, "Oh my God, I need to come out and meet you. I need to make it an entertainment. I need to make it in this and that and another thing." And they're not there for, the interest. They're there for what I could do for them. And I
Mm,
know that. I have friends, that come here from France to see me. I remember picking up one at the airport one day and I said, "Hey, um, if I weren't here in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills, would you have flown over from Paris?" And the person first said, "Oh, no." And then said, "Oops." He said, "The truth is," he said, "I've been offered many times to come to New York to go to Paris." He happened to turn out to be a Prada model
mm,
and eventually, and thanks to me. But he said, "It's different," because he said, "You've been nice." And he
mm.
said, "I trust you and we can just visit." So that helps.
Cool. Yeah. If you know you have a good impact on a person like that, that's very, very
Yeah.
encouraging to know that you're fostering true and real relationships. For the person who is heartbroken, though, what's your best advice to them to, they've lost their mother, they've lost their sister, they've lost a spouse. What do you do at a time like that? Let's say you're not the counselor, let's say you're their best friend.
No, no. Uh, Again, I have to run you around a little bit and not directly answer. But one of the first things I say to people when they talk about a big loss is, "I hope you were able to say the things to the person before you lost them." And to me, that's extremely important. And if the person's able to turn around, like my brother-in-law in Jersey
Mm,
right now, or actually North Carolina, I even flew back. We talked. We've been talking pretty much every other day when he's got the energy.
mm,
Um, the day that he expires, I've done what I can do. I'm human. I'm mortal. I can't bless you and say, "Okay, you're going to be fine." But I know that I've done what I can do. And in the book, I refer to the fact that funerals and memorial services are really there for the living, not for the dead, because the dead can't hear you at that point. So I hope that you've done whatever you need to do ahead of time. Okay, so
good
if
advice.
if they say, "Yeah, I talked to them, I visited them, I was with them, I loved them," cool. And so now you have the right to miss them and feel
Yeah.
bad. And whatever you need to do. When I lost my partner 31 years ago that I'd been with the longest time, uh, I did a memorial trip. Flew back east because we were from the East Coast, although we were living out here and met out here. I flew back there, spent time with the family, did a memorial service in Tuxedo Park, if you know where Tuxedo
Yeah, I
Park,
do, as a matter of
kind of
fact.
fancy and nice.
The home of
And
the Renaissance Fair.
yeah, and then I took the train up to Toronto and then took a train ride across, this is in the wintertime, train ride across Canada.
Mm,
Uh, and somebody in the dining car at one point said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm on a bereavement tour." And they're like, "What?"
mm,
And I said, "Well, I lost my partner." And I said, "I need to have some time to think about it and let it all sink in."
yeah,
So we have to let it sink in, and whatever it is, for some of us, it's driving out to the ocean here. And
yeah,
if that was a special place, or going out to the mountains, or going up on the roof and looking at the stars, whatever it is, but
yeah.
you have to let it go through. One of the worst things is when doctors give people medication to hide the pain,
Yeah.
because the pain's going to be there later.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's a nice tribute to take a little road trip by yourself to just get your thoughts, your feelings together to connect.
Sure.
I can almost picture you on that lonely train ride, out through the Canadian wilderness. It seems like a good place to mourn the loss of somebody you loved. So that's a
It
good
was
tradition.
winter, it was quiet, it was snow all the way. It was kind of
Sounds sounds what you need,
yeah,
that sounds what you do. You got to do for yourself what you need at that time,
exactly. Take care of
and
you, the you and you, as Mr. Rogers always used to say.
yeah,
It's not all the fancy clothes you have, the fancy car you have, whatever. It's the you and you that we care about, and it's the you and you that you got to take care of.
absolutely great advice. As far as this book goes, how do you envision people using it? Reading it when they've lost someone, reading it when they're in fear of losing someone, how do you envision this book being used as a tool to help people deal with their grief and loss?
To me, there's poems in there and thoughts and whatever. And the last chapter is called "It's a Wrap," and it's like talking about things you shoulda, woulda, coulda done.
Hmm.
And we're not just talking about the loss of a person. You said, you probably remember quoting from the last time we did this, but loss is when things happen, when you turn, uh, you know, 40 and you're no longer in your 30s, or when you turn 30 and you're no longer in your 20s. When you leave the university, I teach at the university every year in the spring is awkward because the students are like, oh, I'm done as a student now. I have to go out into the real world. Uh-huh.
Right.
Those are losses. Okay.
Yeah. Loss of
When
a
you,
job. I've cried over that.
yeah, no, big loss of jobs, loss of
Yeah.
careers,
Yeah.
loss of, LA. A friend of mine came yesterday. He said, you guys are still a little bit on the depression side. And he flies for Air France. And I said, yeah, it's really dead here because in the spring, we would have what we called pilot season, where everybody would come to try the shows out, to do different things. Okay. Now that's not happening because you can audition online, you can do Zoom, you have Netflix working all over the world. You don't always have to go to the studios. It's quite quiet. Where my office is on South Beverly Drive, the original Cheesecake Factory #1 is there, and Cheesecake Factory, California Pizza Kitchen across the street, #1. Both of them have been in situations where the management said, if these weren't the first stores, we probably have to let them go.
Hmm.
But we have to keep our first store because the entertainment industry that was around us, all the management companies and all the agents and that, you don't need to go to an agent anymore. You know,
I
you
used to go to casting offices and there'd be
yes.
20 guys that looked just like me in there, all up for the same role. And you would chat with them, you'd talk with them, you'd have relationships with them, you'd get to meet the casting directors, they'd give you insights on this and that, on your performance. And now it's just like this. You look into the camera in your home studio, and it's very convenient. It saves you a lot of time, and you can be anywhere in the US or the world, but it is very antisocial and it is very disconnected from humanity.
What you just said, my friend Mel Stewart, who expired about 7 or 8 years ago, but he did the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder. And we were talking one day because I had done a movie called Zombie Bankers, which sold maybe 20 copies. And but when we did the movie and some of the kids from the NYU would come out here, is where we filmed it up in Albany area. And one of the guys said, "Oh, Mel." He said, he's a great producer. I want to talk to him. So we did. And Mel said to him, just what you're saying. He said, remember, he said, you have to have a bunch of things to know whether you have it. But he said, one of the things is remembering when you go for an audition, there's going to be 300 people probably out for the same thing. But what do you bring that's special? Is it a little bit of a smile? Is it a little bit of a personality? Is it a comfortableness that directors connect? You know, there's something special. I mean, again, as an old guy, I have a lot of young people I hang out with, and I'm like, why are you hanging out with me? And they're like, wisdom sometimes is kind of cool to hang out with,
It's a nice compliment,
not just looks,
Yeah, it's nice to be around people who've lived a life and have something to say. And certainly you're that guy, Jim, on so many different levels from your work in Hollywood as a doctor, as a performer, and in the arts in general. Let's talk about your latest book. Such an intriguing title,
that I just happen to
Emotional
have here.
Incest. There it is, A Stolen Childhood. Tell us about that. What's the theme of this book?
All right. The truth is, Doctor, um, that's me on the front cover, the little puppy.
You look a
I
little
was
bit like
actually young.
Spanky McFarland in that picture.
I was actually young at one time,
Yeah,
a long time ago. What this brought about, and this is where, I have also, while we're pitching, you have the grief and loss book, right? And then we
yeah.
have my 9 Steps to a Better Life. And
Yeah.
then I have one called Celebrity Shrink. Okay, but we all have a life. And one of the important things when you're living is to recognize you're going through stuff. And my neighbor, who's French next door, a woman, she's in my age group, she saw the original cover. And the original cover was Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Anger.
Mhm.
And it took me 15 years to get to that point. Okay. And it was when my father died and I was 40 some years old. And at the AIDS clinic, they said, you have, you know, some bereavement days that you can take off. And I said, why? I said, I haven't talked to him in 5 years. And I said, I haven't talked to my mother in 20 years. So I said, I divorced them. And they're like, why would you divorce your family? Your mother and father you have to love. My mother was a sick lady. She had issues. My father had his issues. And I didn't realize until the day he died how angry I was at him for not stepping in. Now, that's when I discovered about emotional incest.
Mhm.
So I kept the title of the book until about a month ago when my neighbor came over and she saw the cover page inside,
Mhm.
and she said, which is this one here. And she said,
Yep.
why don't you make that the damn cover? And she said, when you're in a bookstore or when you're seeing stuff and you have all these colorful, crazy titles around,
Right.
she said, make it that stark white, oh my God, couple words on the cover. And she said, that'll make people stop and think, what the hell is it? When I started looking at it, 15, 20 years ago, I didn't realize there was such a thing. And I was married to my mother, not sexually, but emotionally. And when I started reviewing it, um, I found out that this was something that was happening at the time, but people didn't always know it. They'd call it covert incest, they'd call it whatever. A lot of families, there's power and control. You
Mhm.
know, uh, my friend calls himself, he said, my good Jewish grandmother, he said she always was, um, she'd be, oh, here's some tea and chocolate chip cookies. And when I said, oh, that's great, she'd bring me two more chocolate chip cookies and more tea. So
Yeah.
now you're going to like her even more. All right.
Yeah.
A lot of families, I deal with a lot of Hispanic families and Italian families where I'm your mother. It's your duty. It's your responsibility to do this. Okay, that's another way of control. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, one of my friends put the fact there that sometimes when you do things to people and for people, you're partly doing it to buy as authority, to buy control. A lot of if you know what a codependent person is,
Yeah.
they're do for everybody. And then when they need help, their friends aren't always there. You
Yeah.
know, that, and I know I said it to you once before. The idea if you have a pickup truck or a nice large SUV, you'll have friends on Saturday that you never had before, that you haven't heard from in 6 months. Hey, Logan, you still have your pickup truck? I just calling. I haven't talked to you in a while. And you're like, yeah, I do. Oh, good. I need to move a couch this weekend. Can you help me? And you're like,
Exactly.
I had things to do. Oh, well, what a friend you are. Bang. Okay.
Right.
Right.
Yep. You're
Okay.
a friend of convenience.
Exactly. So I didn't realize, as I say, I try to remind the guys in my domestic violence group all the time, you're not, and this is sounds tacky, but in the AIDS days, I remember reminding people when they came in to test, when you're sleeping with somebody, when you're out dating somebody, you're not just sleeping with them or dating with them, but kind of everybody they've either slept with, been around with, or whatever. And
Yeah.
tacky, as far as STDs, you don't know what they might have picked up, but emotionally, you don't either,
Right.
you know. And that's where I do like Freud's idea, speaking of Pink Floyd, that, we're a product of nature and nurture.
Hmm.
There's certain things you can't change at birth. Race, creed, color, intelligence, IQ, sometimes you can't change. Ability to be able to sing. I always say go to a karaoke bar and the big dorky person gets up and you're shocked when you hear them sing. And then the good looking one comes up to sing and they can't sing for crap. But
Yeah.
then 4 hours later, after they've had 20 more drinks, they sing louder, but they still can't sing any better, right? That's the nature. The nurturing is what we learn as we grow. It's what we learn as we grow. And this is where, as I said, I found out my mother, uh, again, to make a short story long, but my mother's side of the family was Austro-Hungarian. My great-grandfather was a Greek Catholic priest, Byzantine Catholic priest, excuse me. They were allowed to marry for a while so they could increase the population of the church.
Mm.
He got married, came to the United States. He had four daughters in 1900. Three of them went on the stage as Ziegfeld girls. Most of you would have no idea who the hell Ziegfeld is, but started the Broadway thing in New York. They went on the stage as the three Park sisters danced their hearts out. The fourth one was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm a real religious person. I don't want God to hate me. So she did the dutiful thing, got married, had a kid
Mhm.
who was my mother. And for some reason or other, her husband left her the day she was born, the day
Mm.
my mother was born. I'm out of there. This is Jersey. And he moved out to California. My mother grew up always sending him, like little girls often do, cute little cards and whatever because of the alimony. She never heard from him because in those days she didn't have phones and that to go across country.
Yeah.
When she was 19, she came across the country with a relative, knocked on the door in Long Beach, and she said, Hi, I'm your daughter, Marion, that's been sending you all of postcards and Christmas cards and little notes. And he said, You are dead. I've been paying for your mother for 20, 19 years. I'm done. I'll call the police if you don't leave. You are not mine. You're dead,
Mm.
which disturbed her. Okay.
Yeah.
And this was 1937, 8-day drive across the country back to New Jersey, and she never recovered. What did she do? She married a man a little older than her, who was 15 years older, my father.
Father figure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it, Dr. Logan. And that's exactly, but they don't do it purposely. There's a
Right.
difference between premeditated,
Premeditated.
premeditated. Some of us should be
Premedicated
medicated.
also.
But, when somebody falls in love with somebody, they say, we know there's many people in our country that have married somebody from another country, and they say at some point, well, at least I got my citizenship and I was able to bring my parents here and everything. Okay.
Yeah.
That's premeditated.
Right.
When it just so happens, that's different. And so my mother didn't know what she was doing. She just was angry. So she married a gentleman. I mean, he was a smart guy. He was a businessman. He was a Mensa candidate, but he never did anything about it, and always older mindset. He was happy to read and do things and just think. She's tried to go on the stage. She got approved as a rockette for a little while. And then her mother said, You can't do that. You know, people on the stage are tramps and trash. So my mother eventually, and I've said this to you, I think before maybe, but that's where the life, liberty, and pursuit of anger comes from.
Mm.
When I was teaching school back in the 70s, I remember for a little while, it was a temporary job for 10 years. I remember sitting down with a girl and I was playing acting principal. I was a special ed teacher, but I would do the acting principal stuff sometimes. And I remember dragging this girl and said, Wendy, Wendy, Wendy. I said, You and Jimmy are out there in the playground fooling around a little lot. I
Mm.
said, You're 14, I think, or 13. And I said, you could get in trouble with what you're doing. And I said, you could end up with a baby.
Mm,
And she started crying for him, but then she turned to me and she said, but then I'd have something to love,
mm,
would love me forever.
mm.
When we have children, you're supposed to raise them to help them become good adults and move on. Okay. I mean, they'll still be part of your family, don't get me wrong, but you're supposed to
Supposed to
raise,
fly the nest.
yeah, and then yes, fly the nest, and then you raise your kids and do whatever. But I was shocked. I mean, I was in my 20s. I was probably 24 when she said that. And I thought, this is better than the books I've read, damn it.
Mm,
I'd never even thought about that. The boys don't think about that. My guys in the group are always saying, remember, men are logical, women are emotional. And I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I said, when you start fooling around with a girl, how many of you think, oh, when I'm 30 and I have a 10-year-old son, should I be sitting down there and saying to him, your mom, I never should have married her, but she just got pregnant. Okay. Uh, that's not the goal. Girls, though, usually think of, he'd be a great father. When they see a celebrity, they see an entertainment person, they're like, oh, God, I'd love to be married to him. He'd
mm.
make such a great dad. We'd have such a great time. When the guys see somebody on the screen, they're like, hot chick.
Right.
That's all you need at the moment. Okay. So we have to come somewhere in the middle. And so that's when I realized my mother, okay, realized that she had me and she had no other, she couldn't have any more kids. I was an 8.5 month, 8.5 pound baby, and she was only 4'11". So
Mm,
when I came out of that womb, there aren't going to be any more kids out of there ever, ever, ever again. And so she knew it was it. And so she started keeping me home from school. I was
mm,
not a dummy. I skipped kindergarten because we didn't have kindergarten. I was a post-war student person. So I started first grade when I was 4.5 years old.
mm.
And then, I did okay. I started with a couple other 4 and 5 year olds, and most of them dropped out. I was the only one that stayed. And, I got along well with the teachers. I didn't like doing a lot of little kid things, but my mother would always say, hey, it's raining. Why don't you stay home today?
Mm,
Okay, we were on the Jersey Shore. We were 2 houses from the water, the bay, the Raritan Bay, where you go into New York City.
mhm.
I could see New York City across the bay. We'd hop on the train, and in 25 minutes, we're in New York. The people at the Macy's there knew me. The seventh floor was the kids in those days. It's still a big, big
Department
department store.
store. Yeah.
But in those days, you didn't worry about kids getting raped and molested and whatever. So we'd go in. And my mother would say, "I'm going to be in the, women's department or in the housing thing, furniture." I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Here, little 7-year-old Jimmy's on the escalator. And if you know Macy's in there, there's wooden escalators still that they've
Yeah.
staved. And it was up on one of those floors. And the people up there, I was there 4 or 5 times a year. And they're like, oh, hi, how you doing, little Jimmy? You want to play with this stuff or this stuff? And I was fine. Okay. Why would I want to go to school?
Right.
Could go there and we could go to Sardi's for lunch. We could
Right.
go, we could go to the diners. There was a security guard at the Empire State Building that knew us because when we go back on the train or on the bus back to Jersey, my mother dropped me, we'd go in there to use the restroom because in the bus station it was a little scarier.
Mm,
But this guy, oh, you're here. Boom, take me to the restroom back. Um, she did that all the way through school. I missed as many as 50% of the school days.
oh,
180 school days, I'd miss 75
mm.
days. And I wasn't complaining. I'd stay home 1 week, 2 weeks. Now,
So
this
you're
is
a
where
kid, you're loving it. You're not in
I
school
was loving
where,
it.
you're uncomfortable and the teacher's reading the riot act to you. You're there with your mom, you're comfortable, you're eating out, you're going to Macy's, it's fun, it's good, except it's not
And
good for you, right?
no, but see, this is where we talked about the Zoom stuff too. Partly, I was home all the time. I didn't like being with other kids. I had a
Right.
real hard time with that. And it was a problem. And yeah. And eventually, of course, my mother was also attractive, so TMI, but she was sleeping with the school principal at the high school at one time, so I could stay out as much as I wanted without trouble. The teachers would make fun of me, and it really embarrassed me. I remember one time, teacher, eighth grade teacher, just before lunch, he says, "Mr. Gordon, looks like your mother's coming down the hallway again." And she would decide she was drunk. She was an alcoholic, convenience alcoholic. She didn't drink every day like a real alcoholic does. My father was good at that. My mother would just, whenever she couldn't control things, and she was coming down the hallway with eighth grade students in New Jersey, um, in her uh, bathrobe, but nothing much underneath it except maybe the bra. And the teacher's like, "Oh God, here she goes. Get her out of here as soon as you can." And that was my duty. I was 12 years old. I was 12 when I started high school, went off to high school, and it was embarrassing. And the teachers would make fun of me, you know, "You're never here. No wonder you don't know how to do this." So when my father died, I got really mad because I thought, son of a gun, why didn't you sometimes say something? They stayed married all their life,
Mm.
okay? But they were like, you know, I often wondered, how the hell did they have me? You know, they were perfectly happy to be in separate bedrooms and do it.
Right.
He
But
was
he was a
always
little
working.
miracle.
Yeah, he was always working out of the country or something to get out of town and all that. And so that's when I realized that I was really angry. And that's when also when I was 34, I came home and my mother was sitting, and that's what was the original thing that triggered all this. She was sitting at my house and she said, "I have good news for you. I'm leaving that bastard father of yours and I'm moving back in with you so we can be happily ever after."
Wow.
And I was like, son of a bitch. Sorry. But,
Amazing. Amazing.
so,
This is great material for a book. Obviously, it's called Emotional Incest,
yeah.
and it's a bit of a memoir that seems like it analyzes the
Oh, it
dysfunction
is.
within your family that other people might recognize the dysfunction in their own relationships and family, right, Jim?
And this is what I've found as I've talked about it. It's amazing how many people that say now there's a number of books about emotional incest. I have a website, emotionalincest.com. You can go check. And people are realizing it happens a lot. Both men, boys to their mom, and sometimes girls to their mom. And what I say in there, one of the first clues when mom and dad are fighting a lot and arguing a lot, and mom and dad are throwing frying pans at each other or whatever,
Yeah.
and you end up, mom, you know, and dad hit each other, whatever. Mom runs into the bedroom, throws herself on the bed, crying. And little Bobby, who's 7 years old, goes in, "Mom,
Comforting her.
are you okay?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "I am now that you're here." And the minute he hears that, that's now his caseload. He's taken a caseload on for life.
Perfect illustration of emotional incest, and that is the name of Dr. Jim Gordon's book. It sounds terrific. I can't wait to read it. Another book we've been talking about today is Grief and Loss, The Start We Call the End, edited by Betty DeGeneres. It is a powerful self-help book that offers guidance, comforting words, and actionable insights for anyone navigating the challenges of loss. And that includes a variety of different kinds of losses, from the death of a lost one to the end of a chapter in your life. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much. Catch you next time.
I
It's
appreciate your
been good.
time,
It's been
sir.
good. It's been fun.
I
All
had
right.
fun talking to you as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.